Generally speaking, I don't make videos about America because, well, unless it actually impacts us here in South Africa, I don't see much of a point. Now, the truth is, I should probably pay a lot more attention to international news, and I should probably cover a lot more of the international space because, well, fundamentally, things that happen in the rest of the world will absolutely impact us here in South Africa. If that is something you're interested in, you can just let me know in the comment section down below. In this instance, though, this is good for all humanity, including South Africa. Literally this morning, Zoran Mamdani was elected as the mayor of New York City in the United States of America. Zoran lived in South Africa, where he spent, I believe, a few years, actually, before moving to the United States. Zoran comes from an incredibly wealthy family. His mother is some kind of big shot, I believe, in the film industry. His father is a professor, I believe, at Harvard. So he is one of the most privileged people on the planet. He is also a full-blown communist socialist. One of the policies he ran for prior to becoming the mayor of New York was the idea of freezing the rent, or better known as rent control. This is a policy that has existed in the United States, or at least in New York, for almost 100 years now, really since just before, during the Great Depression, really, is when they started to toy around with things like rent control. As a result of rent control, rent in New York has absolutely skyrocketed. The problem is that since most people go through the public education system, they get an education that prepares them to fundamentally reject any sort of complex thinking. As a result of that, unless something makes logical sense, and when I say logical, I really do mean unless you can show them this is a blue little triangle, there's the little triangle place, put the triangle into the triangle. Unless it's that straightforward, they simply cannot connect the dots. And so what ends up happening is people go, wow, rent in New York is insane. And it truly is. Rent in New York is absolutely out of this world. And they don't connect the fact that you have a crap ton of apartments that are currently sitting empty in New York. Why are they sitting empty? Because the owners of these apartments would have to spend tens of thousands of dollars fixing up these apartments, getting them up to regulation, and these apartments are rent controlled, meaning they would never make their money back. They would basically be losing money on these rent controlled apartments. And the problem with rent control is once it's established, people never leave those apartments. They will basically pass those apartments on from themselves to their children. They will never give them up because you have people living in New York City in apartments in the West Side for like $1,500 a month, right? That's the rent on those apartments. All of the other apartments around it is going for a hell of a lot more. And of course, most people in New York don't really want to build new apartments and new apartment buildings because, well, there's always the threat that your apartments or some of the apartments in your building could go under rent control, in which case you'll just forever lose money. Now, Zoran has said he's bringing that back. He's freezing the rent. And this time he actually wants to do it for, I believe, something like a third of all apartments in New York. Should absolutely freeze it. What will happen is the people who are lucky enough to be in that third of the apartments, they'll be super lucky. They'll get their apartments for whatever the rent was at the time. You will almost instantaneously see every other apartment in New York City absolutely explode in price. You'll see even fewer people building. But I want to say this is a good thing. I want to congratulate the people of New York City who voted for Zoran Mamdani. And I want to say thank you to each and every one of you for the sacrifice that you have made on behalf of the rest of the world. You will now be the guinea pig. You have voted for your own suffering, and you will be the guinea pig. We will be able to point back to New York in about 5-6 years and say, whoa, look at those people. They're suffering. They're dying on the streets. There's no food to eat. The entire city is falling apart. Look at the gangsterism, the crime. Look at the suffering that's happening on those people. To those who voted for Zoran Mamdani, I want you to know I don't feel sorry for you at all. I do thank you for your sacrifice, though, so that I can point to communists and socialists in my own country and say, see what you bring, because that has always been the same. The only thing I can hope for is that Trump stops any sort of federal aid to New York City. Since New York City wants this communist socialist utopia, New York should not be allowed to gain any benefit from the federal government or any sort of help from the federal government whatsoever. Let the New Yorkers suffer in silence, or, depose and get rid of this socialist that you just voted for, but it will be your suffering and your suffering alone. It excites me, though, because we have the same problem here in South Africa with a whole bunch of socialists and a whole bunch of communists who have not figured out yet that the reason communism has never worked anywhere in the world is because communism is a pipe dream. Karl Marx himself said we'll have socialism for a short period of time where the government owns everything, and then we'll just magically transition into communism. He never actually explains how that transition is supposed to happen. More importantly, he never actually explains what it looks like after that transition has taken place. And here's why. The whole premise of communism and why it is so successful amongst people who are your educated elite, people who have gone through official government propaganda centers where they are taught to reject complex thinking and instead think very linearly about everything. What happens there is communism offers easy answers to incredibly complex situations. Oh, there's people suffering, tax the rich. Even though every economic theory ever, and every single time it's ever been tried, it didn't actually result in fewer poor people. Taxing the rich literally just resulted in more poor people, because rich people, once they get taxed, just pass those taxes on to those below them on the totem pole because they're not stupid. If you tax the rich at 60%, their products will just be 60% more expensive because that's just how it works, right? If you have a problem with homelessness, just build more homes. Never mind the fact that no government has ever been able to eradicate homelessness by building more homes from the side of the government. And that's because for every single house that you build, you're destroying economic growth. You're destroying the ability for people to get homes. You're destroying the ability for people to actually get jobs. And so as a result of that, you're adding more people to the unemployed and homeless number than any amount of houses that you can ever build. Look at the UK. Look at literally the whole of Europe. It is impossible because government spending is not a gain to economic function. When the government spends money, it is in fact not helping anyone grow, because government has to take money from someone in order to give to someone else. It works out to a loss because in the transfer of the rands from this one person to that other person, the government is also taking a cut for itself. And that is why you will never have growth as long as the government is spending it. But New York will be the ones to prove that to us. And that excites me. To all of the socialists and the communists, I want you to look well. I want you to keep an eye on, because things might turn up in the short term. It might look as if everything is going really well. And then suddenly, things in New York will start to go very, very badly. And that is where I want you to remember to keep quiet. You voted for this. Suffer well. As always, hit the like if you liked it. If you didn't, let me know in the comment section down below what you're looking forward to seeing from the people of New York. It's going to be fun. As always, massive shout out and thank you to all of the patrons as well as the YouTube channel members for continuing to support this channel and allowing me to do what I do. This was a little bit more of a fun video. I obviously don't want people to suffer, but my argument here is these are people who voted for it, right? They voted for their own suffering. So I don't feel sorry for them. I feel sorry for those who didn't vote for Zoran and are now going to have to pay the price for this. But hopefully those New Yorkers can escape New York before it turns into an absolute hellscape. As always, thank you so much for watching. Be good to each other, be kind to each other, and I will see all of you in the next one. Peace.